Let's now tackle how to add a new student, and there are two aspects to that. One is we want the user to be able to type the information in, and the second thing is we want to turn it into a format which can be added to the student list at the moment. So asking people for information is always the simplest thing to do. So we could just say have an input message, and you can make this as nice as you want. So here I've added a couple of print statements and then an input, and we can just execute this. And there it is, the print statements come up, add a new student, and then the marks, please separate the ID and marks using commas. So we can go ahead and enter a new student. So they're separated by commas. I've got the student ID followed by 7 marks for English, Math, Science, Comp Sci, German history and music. Okay, so that they're all there. And so what we so after we press enter, what we really want to be able to see is what is in student. So here we have a string separated by commas. And early on, when we brought the file in, we looked at using split to split the file on the tab key, and we didn't have to say that it's the tab key to split on. So let's see if we can do the same here. So if we say student dot split, so we're just using a function which is going to split the student string into a list, and that's fantastic because that's exactly what we need to then append to our marks which already exist called data. So I've taken my experiments, made sure they've worked, and I've moved them over here. So I've then split student, which is what the input that's been given to us by the user, and then I've added that onto data. And again, if we run this, and then we can see, if I just type in the same student here again, and I'll just change the ID to 71 because this is a new running of the program. Press enter, and now if we look at data, that student JM71 has been added to the end. So now we've got that working, we can easily put that into a function, and we can also add extra validation, so you could check to see whether 7 things were typed in, or you could be much more prescriptive and ask for a student ID which was 5 characters long, and then ask for the English marks and the maths marks and the science marks and the computer science marks, etc. So here I've just put the things into a function, the last few statements that we had, and I've called it new student, and I've just run data equals get data. I've just moved that statement to the end here, and just so all of the functions are together at the top. So you can see how we're building up this solution. We're doing small bits at a time, and then we're putting them into functions and trying to generalize those functions. Now we've done adding a new student, we're going to look at how to delete a student. Again, I'm going to type some statements in which we're going to run, and then we'll experiment over in the shell before putting everything into a function. So here I've just got a print statement letting the user know some information about what they're required to enter, and then I've got an input statement which is going to ask for a student ID. So if we run this program, I can enter a student ID, so I can maybe enter the one that I used before, JM71, and I can make sure that that has indeed gone into my variable called student ID. We can also try and remind ourselves about which function of a list we may use to actually delete a student with that student ID. So I'm just going to get hold of one of the students. So that gives me a student, and I just want to have a look at what kind of things I can do with a list item. So I'm just going to do dir and then that one student. So what are the sorts of things that one can do with a list? And so here we've got the remove function, which sounds as if it will actually do what we need it to. So we could use the same pattern as we did here, where we go through the whole of the data file to find a student ID, and instead of, in this case, returning the information about that student, we can remove that. So we're going to use exactly the same pattern as before, and it's just going to be a for loop. So I'm just going to experiment, make sure it works here. So let's have for students in data, let's go through the data list of lists. So this should work. It should remove the details of our student ID with JM71, which is the last student that we entered. So again, this is just a for loop, and we're going to go. Let's see if this experiment works. And so we need to reprint data and see if JM71 is there. And no, it doesn't exist. So we can try again with another one, but I think I'm quite happy with the code, and we're ready to put it over here in our main program. So here's the for loops moved over into the main program, and so now when I run this program, it's going to ask for a student ID, and so we'll use that to test the program. So first of all, let's make sure there aren't any errors in it and run this. Let's enter a student ID that we want to remove. Now, in the last time we printed data, if I just pick a student ID GML2, okay, so let's do that one, GML2, and now let's see what data holds. And we don't have, it's in, we don't have, GML2 has been deleted. So it's important to recognize that we haven't deleted GML2 from the file, we've only deleted it from data, which is at the moment in RAM. So we haven't written this data out to a file yet. So the last thing to do is just to put this into a self-contained function and move data equals get data to the bottom. So there I've just created a function delete student and put all the commands for doing that within that function, and then the only thing that this program does is give us data, which is a list of students, and so you should now be able to do very easily the same thing for changing a student. So changing a student, again, you're going to look through, find the student, and then update with new data, and you can decide how you want to deal with that. And then the other thing that you might want to do is think about how both of these functions could be made more general, and how you could have a function which only dealt with the input, and then this function solely dealt with passing the string and then appending that to data. And so you would probably have to take a string input here and then use it here. The reason for doing that would be to have better data validation, because at the moment the user can type in any old string and it gets added to our data file, and for us it's very important that the data is in the format shown here, because one more or one less element would cause some of our functions, particularly the ones where we sort the marks, that would throw that function completely off. That would give us an error. So this function also could handle the user input in a separate function, and all this did was to remove something from data And again, the reason why you might want to handle the user input in a separate function would be, again, for validation. So you possibly want to print out all of the student IDs for the user to choose from, because otherwise they would need to have the list of IDs in front of them when they were using the program. So once you've got your update function completed, which is really the last thing that that needs doing here, then the last video really, or the last couple of videos, I'm going to just talk about how we put all of these functions together in one user menu that the user can navigate through, and also then save what they've done, which means writing everything out to a file.